So could you clarify the whole story about you saying to President Trump, "We like your face on Mount Rushmore," and just what happened with that? And if that's something that you did suggest, is that something you still believe now, even after January the 6th?
I think the very first time I had a conversation with him was in the Oval Office, and I was introducing myself to him. And I said, because I was a member of Congress at that time, there was quite a few of us in the room with him, and I said, "Mr. President, I'm Kristi Noem. I'm from South Dakota. South Dakota is the home of Mount Rushmore. You should come visit it sometime." And he said, "Oh, did you know that it is my dream to have my face on Mount Rushmore?" And I was surprised by that. We laughed and chuckled about it. But yeah, so I had known that, and I was thinking about that after that and had talked to him about it since, that people are always kind of surprised that somebody would feel that way, but you should want your leaders to do great things. I think that's what's wonderful about America is that we've got people that start from all different walks of life and should want to achieve such great things that they would be remembered in a way like that. But coming from a state like South Dakota that a lot of people don't necessarily talk about or don't spend a lot of time thinking about, we're very, very proud to be the home of Mount Rushmore. So tourism's our second largest industry, and a large part of that is because of that monument.
As a foreign national who lives here, Mount Rushmore is pretty much now top of my wish list to come and see.
Really? Have you not seen it?
No, never been. I'd love to. But I wonder, what do you think of President Trump's wish, and given everything that happened with January the 6th? I mean, would that be tenable? Would that be viable? Or would there be a sort of huge national backlash if someone started chiseling his face on there?
I don't think we're adding any faces to Mount Rushmore anytime soon.
Right.
It is pretty special just the way it is. So it's that's what's another story of our country is, I don't think anybody has ever claimed that any of our leaders were perfect. Every one of us has flaws, but we still have leaders that led us through challenging times. Remembering that history is incredibly important.
Indeed. I mean, do you think the faces on Mount Rushmore are now increasingly more under question, given the 1619 Project, given the debate over America's origins? There's 4 white men up there. Is that problematic at all? Or?
I don't. They're still incredibly important to me. And remember the celebration we had July 3rd, 2020 at Mount Rushmore when the rest of the country was tearing down their monuments. For me, I was proud of the fact that South Dakota chose to hold a celebration in honor of our country there at that monument. And we've never gone to that monument and pretended that those men were bigger than our country. It was all about our country and all about our history that got us to where we are today. Yep.
Changing the subject, you recently spoke about foreign acquisition of land, particularly China, as a massive problem in the United States. I wonder if you see massive acquisitions of land from people like Bill Gates, who believe in lab-grown vegetables and like fake meat and things like that, buying huge amounts of land as a similar problem to the China issue.
I think the same concerns and questions should be addressed in all those situations. I've talked for over 15 years that I've worked on agriculture policy about the fact that I believe it's a national security issue. The reason that we've always had farm programs or different situations with policy in agriculture is because America embraced for years a food supply chain that we believed should be diversified to keep it competitive and to make sure that it was going to be affordable for everybody in this country to go to a grocery store and be able to buy their food, and that one person didn't control it. So when you see the kind of concentration that we see, for instance, in our meat packing supply chain, or now in our fertilizer companies and supplies where they come from other countries, and then we see large pieces of land getting bought up by one entity or another, and we start losing that diversity, that competition, that is very concerning. So while I'm much more concerned with foreign countries buying up hundreds of thousands of acres, I think the same concerns need to be addressed when it comes to individuals as well.
Has China bought a lot of land in South Dakota?
Not in South Dakota.
If they were trying to, is there anything that your government in South Dakota could do?
We do have a statute on the books in our state that says a foreign country cannot own over a certain threshold of acres, which I think is helpful, but I do know that we've got some legislators that are looking at examining that to make sure that it is addressing some of the concerns we see in other states.
Governor, I was wondering if you could address a couple of different sort of cultural topics going on right now, specifically in the GOP. So the first of all would be, you sent a letter yesterday concerning women's rights in athletics and sports. And
Sure,
such.
fairness.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could speak to how you think that the GOP should be moving forward on that topic.
Well, first of all, just focusing on fairness. Title IX was put in place years ago to ensure that women had a chance to compete and be successful and go forward, potentially earn scholarships or play professionally if they so chose. And that is what we're trying to protect here today, too. Most people don't remember. It'd be great to get more coverage about years ago when I was in Congress. The federal government came in and tried to, just in the small, state of South Dakota, in rodeo, tell us we couldn't have female events or male events any longer. So, I fought that battle years ago when I served as a member of Congress and was able to get the USDA to back off the sport of rodeo and allow us to still keep men's events, women's events. So it's not a new topic. I feel like because it's such a national issue now, everybody thinks it's the first go round on this, but we have to continue to maintain and recognize the difference between biological males and females and what that brings to certain areas and events like athletics, and protect it. So I'm proud of the fact that we passed the strongest bill in the country and have the strongest law to ensure that. But I think that this is not about any kind of an agenda other than fairness and making sure that women have the chance to compete.
Secondarily, there is currently a piece of legislation going through the Senate right now surrounding marriage and what that looks like, whether gay marriage is going to be legalized at the federal level after Dobbs and the decision on the court. What are your thoughts on how the GOP should vote on that?
Well, when it comes to the Supreme Court weighing in on that topic, it's a completely separate issue. So I know that's what's brought it forward in a lot of different conversations, but I haven't looked at the Senate bill, and I'm not going to tell people how they should vote. Certainly when it comes to out here on that issue in particular, I think there's a diversity of opinions within the GOP and within the Republican Party on how people would land on that type of an issue.
Do you have an opinion on whether gay marriage should be legal at the federal level?
I've never supported gay marriage as far as the legality of it in our state. For me, a lot of my faith has to do with that and the legal documentation of that. But I do know that a lot of people are still continuing to have those discussions.
Governor, I was going to ask you about the debate going on with the border. A lot of Republicans say every state is a border state, not just the ones that are right there up close and personal on the U.S.-Mexico border. How are you dealing with the influx of illegal immigration in South Dakota?
Well, it's been a challenge. I think what's happening at the border is completely different than just illegal immigration. This is a national security threat because we don't have a secure border. When Arizona and Texas requested help, I sent my National Guard. In fact, I was the first governor to send National Guard. Most other governors were responding with law enforcement, but recognizing the unique situation we have down there, it literally is a war zone. So we had members volunteer to go as a unit to partner with the Texas Guard and work with Border Patrol, and they were there for a period of time. And now I'll be sending down some of my National Guard Lakota helicopters to help with surveillance. But for us in particular, I telegraphed pretty widely to my NGOs and nonprofits that if they cooperated with facilitating people that were crossing the border illegally in our state, that they would have a difficult time with their state contracts and licenses if they worked to break our federal laws in partnership with what this administration is doing. Beyond that, though, it's the drugs and human trafficking are devastating for our state. I have 9 Native American tribes, and they are sovereign governments. I don't have any authority or jurisdiction on their lands, and a lot of the drugs and trafficking that's happening that go out throughout the Midwest are being funneled through my tribal reservations. So there's very little law and order there. There's a lot of poverty and wide open spaces, and we've got some of the cartels that have a presence in South Dakota on our reservation land, and a lot of those drugs are moving through those areas, and I have very little that I can do to address it. So the increase in illegal drugs and activity has been dramatic since we've seen this open border.
Are you accepting buses or flights of illegal immigrants?
Not that I'm
in South
aware of.
Dakota?
We have not seen that, and I haven't had reports of that in our state. I think it's because I have been pretty open and aggressive with our nonprofits on their activities and involvement, how that would be received, but I couldn't guarantee you, that. It's just difficult to know for sure what would be happening that we wouldn't be aware of.
And Vice President Harris, she's the border czar. What's your impression of how she's been handling the situation? She hasn't visited actually in
I
person.
don't even know if she's aware she's in charge because I've seen no activity from her. It's unfortunate.
You've recently made some
Come to you next.
some comments about the abortion trigger laws that went into effect after the Dobbs decision. I'm wondering if you think that there's an opportunity for, and if this is something you support, for reforming and expanding adoption and foster care laws. And
Oh, you're speaking my language.
if that's something that the Republican Party should really look at.
Well, I started on that a couple of years ago when I became governor. This actually became a big initiative of mine, was focusing on adoption and all of our foster care programs in the state, that I wanted many more families involved in foster care, and then asking those foster families to adopt these children. So we have signed up hundreds of new foster care families in the state over the last couple of years. I now pay for the home studies for individuals that would choose to adopt a child. This is an opportunity for us with what has happened with Roe being overturned and sent back to the states, is that we have an opportunity to really show that we do support women, especially women that are in crisis, in ways that we haven't before. And I started a website that has all those resources in one location, life.sd.gov, where we're coordinating some of that outreach, letting people know that if they do find themselves in an unplanned pregnancy, that there are people there ready to walk alongside them, help them with medical care, financial assistance, maybe parenting their child by adoption, or even just a mentorship of being with them through the process. So there is a huge opportunity for states if they'll see it that way. I think that's something we've been needing to do for a very long time. A lot of people talk about abortion. They don't necessarily always talk about what they can do to support these women and families that find themselves in this situation.
What would you like to see on a national level and at the state level when it comes to those things, to that issue specifically?
Well, I think it's wonderful that every state now will be making the decision themselves. And I think every state will look different. Our state had the trigger law in place. That meant that abortions were illegal as soon as Roe was overturned, except to save the life of the mother. But I know that's going to be a very different situation than what you'll see in New York, where that governor said she wanted to be a destination that was known for a place people could come to get an abortion. So that it's appropriate that every state have this discussion, and also that it may look different how they support mothers at this time in their life as well.
Sorry to jump in just because it's on this topic.
Okay, then I'm coming here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Do you have objections to women in South Dakota traveling to another state
No.
to have an abortion? Would there be any kind of legal action against them? Or
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know of any legislators that are seriously pursuing that, and I'm certainly not. And to be clear, even in South Dakota, if they were to get an abortion, even though the law doesn't allow it, a woman would never be prosecuted. It would be the doctor that facilitated it and knowingly broke the law, not the women.
As a governor that really embraced freedom during COVID-19, are you at all concerned, and what are your concerns with monkeypox and the Democratic trifecta that's right now in place, and if there could be anything that, if they start pushing and pressuring for lockdowns again, are you at all concerned about that, and what would you then do?
We've been doing what we do with every health crisis that comes to our state. Our health department is heavily involved. I am speaking with researchers across the country and even across the world when we see this kind of development of any type of sickness or virus. So we're watching it. We're on top of it. We haven't been one of the states that's been heavily impacted by cases, but the same decisions will need to be made by leaders. And obviously I made very different decisions than other governors. I feel they overstepped their authority, and that truly did lead to people losing their freedoms over the last couple of years. And my hope is that they would have learned the detrimental effects of taking that kind of unprecedented action.